tonight. Abazange bambona uchuchulo abamazilo abazange bambona. Yes, we're in the presence of Chuchu here and we're expecting a lot from him. Uchuchulo abamazilo abazange bambona uchuchulo abamaziyo abazange bambona abazange bambona abazange bambona abazange bambona abazange bambona uchuchulo abamaziyo abazange bambona uchuchulo abamaziyo abazange bambona. Ngawethu ngawethu
Viva Julius Malema, viva!
viva
Viva Julius Malema, viva!
viva
Viva Commander-in-Chief of the EFF, viva!
viva
Viva Commander-in-Chief of the EFF, viva!
viva
Siyayithatha le Rhodes University, siyayithatha!
Gaitata
Le Rhodes University, siyayithatha!
Gaitata
Amandla! Amandla!
ngawethu
Amandla!
ngawethu
Amandla! Amandla! Amandla!
Oh my gosh, this is so.
I'm happy, right? Like I'm just feeling too happy.
You're actually sitting in the front.
I'm just happy. Let's see you, Lisa.
I will tell you.
Good afternoon, everybody. We are 10 minutes earlier than we thought we would be. But because the students of Rhodes University were so prompt and filled up 2 halls in no time, we felt that it is best that we start earlier rather than later. Let me start by introducing the leadership that is here. On the right here is hello. Can all the young girls please come?
Yeah!
And the young boys as well.
Yeah, you're not sure, eh? You're not sure. It's South Africa.
This is not GQ, you know. On the right in front of me here is the spokesperson of the Economic Freedom Fighters. He is a member of the Central Command team, which is the national team, the highest decision-making body in the Economic Freedom Fighters. He's also a member of the War Council, which is a body that is responsible for the day-to-day decision-making and thought-leading decisions every day for the EFF. His name is Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, and I'm going to ask him to say 1 or 2 words.
Viva EFF, viva! Viva EFF, viva! Away with Cecil John Rhodes, away!
I have Commissar Roger Kalisa.
He's got a proper fan base. Collected fan base.
You know, EFF only has handsome boys, you know. Commissar Roger Kalisa is also a member of the Central Command Team, which is the highest decision-making body of the economic freedom fighters. And I would like him to also say a word or two.
Long live EFF, long live! Long live! Long live EFF, long live! Long live! Hashtag name must change! Name must change! Name must change! Name must change! Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we do not have time. The proceedings from now on will be as such. Because we have two full halls, the one on this side and the other, what we're going to do is ask the president to speak on the one side and then go and address quickly on the other side as well. That is what we have to do because you guys are such faithfuls of the EFF. And now, let me introduce to you the man who has changed the face of the politics of this country. He is the CIC, the Commander-in-Chief of the Economic Freedom Fighters. He is the President. He is the leader of the vanguard of the people. And his name is none other than Julius Sello Malema.
Amandla. Amandla. Thank you very much, our program director, Vanam Kwena, and the leadership of the EFF present here today, and all those who took their time to come and engage with us today. I've been asked to come and speak to you by the leadership of the Economic Freedom Fighters. And they said we are going to spend some time with you. But I've since been advised that I will have to speak this side and go and speak on the other side. And then 6 o'clock, I'm at the Nelson Mandela University today. So we're trying to speak to as many people as possible. But I will try and also do justice to the issues we felt we needed to deal with here today. We are called the Economic Freedom Fighters because we believe that we have attained our political freedom in 1994. And therefore, political freedom alone is not enough and represent an incomplete freedom. And therefore, it becomes meaningless for as long as there is no attainment of the economic freedom. And the economic freedom is nothing else but the liberation of the mind. But that liberation of the mind will never happen for as long as the people do not own the means of production. And therefore, the ownership of the means of production is at the center of the struggle for economic freedom in our lifetime. In any way, our struggle, when it was conceptualized by generations before us, in 1912 and even before, the wars of dispossession were centered at the ownership of the means of production. So the biggest crime committed by the colonizers was the stealing of the land, which is at the center of the ownership of the means of production. Now, when the people fought in the wars of dispossession, they were not fighting to vote. They were not fighting to obtain political power. They fought as small tribal groups because they wanted to own. They wanted to reclaim what belongs to them. They resisted the stealing of the land by colonizers. And when they got defeated, they then said we need to establish a one progressive body, umbrella body, which will unite all of us. Maybe we will win, because if we fight as small tribal groups, we get defeated. It is important that we unite and then fight as a progressive people. That's what led to the formation of the ANC in 1912. It was not about being voted into power. It was about the ownership of the means of production. So the ANC was formed to reclaim the land and the wealth of the country. And that wealth at that time was represented by cattle which were forcefully taken from our people. And later on, the discovery of gold and diamond, which made an increase, which led to an increase of settlers into our country. So, all this necessitated the struggle by black people, which was about and against colonialism. So, because we agree that our struggle is a struggle to ensure that we own the means of production, we first have to liberate the mind. So, the mind will never be liberated for as long as you do not own the means of production. Because those who own the means of production, they are the ones who own how ideas must spread in the country. They own television, they own newspapers, they own radios. So everything else that people must know, it is determined by the owners of the means of production. So those of you who do not own the means of production, even if you may have good ideas, you will never succeed, because you do not own the means of production. So publishing companies, production companies are owned by the owners of the means of production. So they even go beyond. They own the education system. So what you learn is what they decide should be learned by you. And anything else they don't want you to learn will never be taught at the university. So that's why they zombified the education system of black people. They gave us the so-called Bantu education. Why? Because they thought our collective thinking is the same. So we deserve the same type of education system which will perpetuate black inferiority. And that's why most of you in schools, including here at the university, they teach you how to conduct yourself during interview. I just want to give you an example of that. Why? Because the type of education system is designed in such a way that it must produce employees other than employers. Because the employer I asked this before I came here that we must get a proper sound because I know university sounds are messed up. And somebody said there was a sound system here, there's no sound system. You know? Now, it is, I told you that production companies are owned. And certain people, so they decide which ideas must be heard. So they teach you how to conduct yourself in an interview. Why? Because these universities and the schools, their education system is designed in a manner that it will produce those who are going to sell their labor to survive. And the owners, the buyers of labor remains the few white males. Majority of them are found in Stellenbosch. So that's why the EFF emphasizes that at the center of the struggle for economic freedom is quality education. It is quality education because this education will help liberate the mind. And once the mind is liberated, then the mind will demand to own the means of production. An oppressed mind, an illiterate mind, an uneducated mind will never demand to own the means of production because that mind is comfortable with the status quo. So important that these institutions get to be liberated. An institution like this one with a problematic name, it has to be liberated because they are at the center of causing problems for our people. I mean, it was this university which gave Verjoen an honorary doctorate in 1954. Why did they do that?
Serious. He's like, I'm not even trying to
Take
play.
H. Verjoen, Minister of Education then, who represented the apartheid system, a man who was at the center of the creation of problematic education system for black people. The Bantu education was honored here because this university agrees with the reproduction of ideas which will lead to segregation of our people. This university honored such people because they agreed at the time that such people are correct people because they represent white supremacy. So today they have to be ashamed that they've given, honorary doctorates to murderers, to people who were at the center of persecution of those who demanded their freedom. It was this university which hosted the first conference of NUSAS, where instructions were clear to NUSAS delegates that black students will not enjoy the same privileges with white students during their stay in this institution. Therefore, they must never think black students are going to be housed here. They must never think that they are going to socialize in the areas which are exclusively for whites. Steve Biko and them said to the delegates of NUSAS, especially white fellow students, you have to defy these orders of the university. You have to tell the university that all of us are going to enjoy the same privileges available to delegates to this conference. But the white students could not agree. They actually agreed with the management that the black students should be segregated against, because it was believed even by fellow students then that it is correct to segregate black students. It was in the same institution that SASO actually was born. Because Steve Biko and them realized we need to form our own organization. If we think we're together with white students in the same organization, fighting for the same interest, yet on the other hand, they agree with policies of isolation, it can't be correct. So in as much as this university has produced racists of note and supported laws that separated our people, it was through such experiences that progressive ideas which were represented by Steve Biko were equally born here. Because it was Steve Biko who said, now it is the time for the black people to fight for their dignity. It is for the black people to fight so that they can be respected and be treated as equal citizens in this country. So it's important to note that history, because you ought to know where you come from in order to determine the direction you need to take. So in as much as we know them to be advocating for white supremacy, but we also have to know that black consciousness was born here. You ought to know that, and it's important that blackness should never be understood to be representing backwardness. Blackness should never be seen to be representing inferiority, illiteracy, and selling out your soul because you think that you are inherently incompetent. Now, if we have progressive white students, now they must be the ones who are going to stand in the struggle, especially the struggle to rename this university. Why? Because you cannot celebrate a name of a person who is responsible for the isolation, including the stealing of the land of black people. You cannot celebrate a person who represents white supremacy, because white supremacy is a serious phenomenon which ought to be defeated, and not only by blacks but by white themselves, who have now come to accept that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white, but it will never belong to all of us if the other party think that it is superior. You ought to start behaving in a manner that shows that you are not superior. You are part of the people of South Africa. You want a peaceful environment. You want a peaceful country where resources of the country are shared equally. You ought to be in the forefront. Why do you name a university after individuals? You name university after individuals. You create statues of individuals because you think that they represent certain values which must be emulated by generations to come. So why would you want generations to come to emulate a person who stands for white supremacy, a person who represents isolation of black people, a person who has stolen the land from black people? Are you saying to generations to come. Stealing from others is a good thing, because if you lead stealing, you will be idolized by generations to come. That is what the stage of Cecil John Rhodes and the name of this university try to suggest. That all those who presided over the murderous regime, we're speaking about the stealing of the land. We are just being moderate, because we are trying to accommodate all South Africans here. But the reality is that these people did not just steal the land. They committed genocide in the process of stealing of the land. They killed black people. They killed black people who refused to surrender the land. So it's important that all those who benefited from such a system should begin to be in the forefront of denouncing that system and say to us, we are not like those who came before us. We are the Mandela Freedom Generation. We want to live with everybody because we believe that all humans are equal. So we don't need those who think that when we say we are demanding our land, we are actually saying why it must go. Anyone who think like that, anyone who think like that, you don't have a home in South Africa. Yeah. If you think we say why it must go, then you are free to leave. You are free to leave. We cannot say that there must be equal ownership of the land, and you see that as removing white people. We lived here for more than 3 years without our property, but we never left. We remained here because we knew one day a new generation will be born, and it is that generation which will restore the dignity of black people. When we demand the land, we are not demanding just the land. We are demanding our dignity. There is no dignity without ownership of property. That's why those who come from the townships will tell you that a black person who owns even a bad-shaped shack, not in a good condition, that person all the time doesn't forget to tell the neighbors and whoever cares to listen that this is my home. Yeah. It is that pride that comes with ownership. Yeah. We did not have pride because we do not have our dignity. We are inferior because we do not have property.
Ah, yes.
We cannot think because we have no property. Ownership helps us to think.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have robbed us everything, including our thinking capacity.
Oh,
so bring back our land, because it is that land which will help us to liberate ourselves. We are asking of the land peacefully. You have taken the land violently. We are asking of it peacefully, at least for now.
At least for now.
I cannot guarantee that it will stay like that for a long time. The anger of our people is boiling. Our people are becoming impatient. You are happy because they march and demand that from government. The day they get educated and know who is the real enemy, that is the day you are going to be in danger. because you own the media, because you own ideas, you are the one who tells people to turn against the government and foreigners and not concentrate on the real enemy. The enemy one day will be known to our people. And the day they appreciate who is the enemy, you will be in serious danger. So before they come to you, surrender the land. Surrender the land before the land comes with everything.
Yes.
When we say we're demanding our minerals, the minerals come with the land. When we say we demand the wealth of the country, that wealth comes with the land. We demand the land because we want to settle our people. The reason why our people are homeless is because in their majority they cannot afford to buy the expensive land. I mean, we are leading the struggle to invade the land. In most areas where we've invaded the land successfully, people don't ask for RDP houses. They start building themselves spacious and proper houses. Because RDP houses are not a solution. They want the land, but they do not have money to buy the land. It's expensive. So we want the land to settle them. We want the land to build clinics for our people, to build schools for our people, to build proper roads for our people. We want the land to produce food because it is the ownership of the land which will guarantee us of food security. Today we're speaking, South Africa only receives or produces 40% of food here. The 60% is from outside. Because people do not own their own land. If people own their own land and they are given the necessary tools to work their land and support to work their land, will be guaranteed of food security. People are going to bed without a meal because they cannot produce, even if it's not to sell, but for survival. They want the land for survival. Stop asking us, what are you going to do with the land? You don't know the agriculture. You have no capacity. It's none of your business. This is our land. I mean, you steal my car. You steal my car, and I come across that car. I say to you, this is my car. And then you start saying to me, no, you are going to make a spin in Soweto with this car because you don't know how to use it. So I will keep it. And then I must negotiate with a criminal that stole my car. I don't have time for that. Break my car. And what I do with my car is my business. If I take out the wheels and put this car on top of the brakes, it's okay, it's my car. If we don't use this land, it's okay, it's our land. We will have ourselves to blame and not anyone else. But the reality is that we've got capacity. Even this 40% we are talking about, you are just owners. We are doing the actual work of producing the food which is spread all over this country. There is no white laborer in the farms. It's black workers who are producing millionaires. So if you say we don't know how to use the land for, what do you mean? We are using the land now. The problem is that it's under you. We want to use it it must be under us. It's our land. And some of this land, by the way, which they claim is theirs, they don't even have papers for it. Around 1990, when it was inevitable that democracy is coming, most of them started sharing the state properties. Not only the land, they stole government houses, they stole government buildings, they even stole money, transferred it into other countries. So, this thing of saying we must nationalize the land and the state must be a custodian of the land, and all those who are using or who want to use the land must go to the state to reapply, is going to expose a lot of criminals. Because before you reapply, you have to produce proof that I used to own this land before you nationalized it. I was using it for 1, 2, 3. Here is my papers. They do not have papers, many of them. When government did a road from Rustenburg to Mafike, they took some pieces of land from other farmers as they were going along. And then they called upon those farmers to come and hand over papers so that they can be compensated for their land. Majority of them didn't show up because they knew that they were going to be exposed. They would have to produce papers in order to be compensated. They stole a lot of land, not only during those old days, just recently. So we need to support that the state must be a custodian of land ownership, so that we expose the thieves which recently just stole our land, amongst others. When we say foreigners must not own the land, they make noise about it. But no foreigner owns a land in Britain. They want to project themselves as the most democratic and liberal, but they do not agree with their own land. But when they come here, you must let off your land to the highest bidder. The policy that says willing buyer, willing seller is the most dangerous policy, because it means South Africa is available to the highest bidder. One day they will come, and some of them is their wish. They can bring a dollar billionaire, a pound billionaire, who will come and buy the whole of Grahamstown and then fence it, because it's a private land, and say everyone who enters my gate there, you must show cause. What are you doing here? For what? That law will only be introduced for black people. Before you know it, they will introduce dom passes in the name of private owned land. You must be careful. But also, the sovereignty of the country. You cannot have the land of your country owned by private individuals. It threatens the independence, the sovereignty of this country. It's important, if you are patriotic, if you love your country, to say the custodian of the land must be the state, and every individual who wants to use the land must apply to the state and show cause. What do you want to use this land for? I want to use it for residential purpose. You must be given a permission to use it for that. I want to use it for agricultural purpose. Get a permission to use it for that. That's how even the Chinese have done it. They own their own land. But when they come to South Africa, foreigners must be allowed to own the land here. We're talking here of minerals that are stolen. Many of you say to us, hey, nationalization has not worked anywhere. It's going to cripple the economy and all manner of things. Our economy is losing a lot of trillions through exporting of raw materials to outside South Africa. But not only that, that's what we used to say when we were young in the youth league. We thought we have a point. They are taking this thing raw as they are into other countries and not in South Africa. We've recently discovered that they are also stealing the money through transfer pricing. They shift the profits to tax havens. What they do is that they establish another company in a country where taxes are not paid, and then they sell this material to themselves and they devalue it when they sell it to the outside country. So a material where 50 rand is sold at 10 rand, and then they pay a tax on 10 rand, and then they don't pay a tax on 40 because that thing was bought from me for 10 rand. But they sold to themselves at 10 rand to an outside established company in tax havens. So South Africa loses taxes on that 40 rand. Imagine if we made a tax for the fiscals of 2 rand from that 10 rand. If it was sold at a real value of 50 rand, would have made 10 rand. But we're making 2 rand now. Since 1994, there was no law in South Africa that prevented transfer pricing. Only now with the arrival of EFF in Parliament, we said, but this corporate crime must be stopped. They couldn't stop it because the black leadership is in cahoots with white elite. That was the agreement reached during negotiations. That's why you have Cyril Ramaphosa and them. I mean, you know, no offense. I mean, no offense. There is nothing smart about Cyril Ramaphosa. There's nothing smart about it. You know, there is nothing wow about Cyril Ramaphosa. Now, this moderate gentleman, you know, just makes billions like that without any explanation. If you were to ask Cyril, what are you producing? He doesn't produce anything. So what makes him smart? There's nothing smart about him. The only thing that they buy from him is his blackness. He's selling to them his blackness. To say, I am black, therefore I can be BEE, and therefore I can become economic security guard. When your investments are under threat, I will call the state to come and protect your investments. That's what he did in Marikana. That is your role. That is the role of black politicians in business. When the wealth of white people is threatened, they call the state to come and protect the interest of white capital. So you are an economic security guard. You are not an entrepreneur. So that's why we say there's nothing smart about it. So, I mean, if DJ Sbu for real produced more fire, right? If indeed he produced more fire, then DJ Sbu is more smarter than Cyril Ramaphosa because he has produced something, and that thing is on the shelves, and maybe like Coca-Cola will one day become a serious fire. Now, that's what we must celebrate. Producing of ideas, not parasites, not sellouts who go to white people. No, I'm here. I've got a political connection. Make me your partner. And you think that is being smart. That is being a crook. There's nothing smart about it. We want ideas, especially you students. You must celebrate ideas. You must celebrate innovation. You must celebrate new thinking. That's why you are here. You are not here to just receive junk. You have to use that junk to reproduce your ideas. Because this junk you receive here can mess you up. Many of the graduates here, black students, graduates who call themselves middle class, today they've committed class suicide. They think they are better. They look down at us, the poor masses of our people. You know why? Because they taught them at school that to have a bond, to have a car which is owned by the bank, it means arrival.
Yo! This guy is stupid, stupid.
All of them, let me tell you, they do not own. Some of them, no, this Malema is a problem. No, it's going to make us look like Zimbabwe. You don't want that. Are you aware Zimbabweans are actually better than you?
Yes.
What do you mean?
Yes.
Zimbabweans are owning their own land.
Yes, thank you.
They might have temporary challenges because capital is not happy that black people are owning the land. But that is temporary. Zimbabwe will come out of aid. And when Zimbabwe comes out of aid, it will be the only country in Africa where black people own their land.
Yes. Thank you.
It doesn't matter. Change is painful. We are going through a particular period.
Yeah.
But that country is going to be one of the best. I can tell you now. But you stay in a flat. You drive Fiat owned by a bank. You are still owing fees at the university, and you want to tell us you are better. You are swimming in a pool of debt. Before you know it, you are going to drown. Wake up.
I love him.
Daki, wake up.
I love him.
That's not a better life. That's not what our people died for.
Yeah.
For you to swim in a pool of debt, for the ANC to say we'll produce a new middle class, meaning we'll produce new people who have joined those who are swimming in a pool of debt. It's not worth celebrating. We cannot celebrate debt. We want to celebrate wealth. We need our wealth. And that wealth, it doesn't matter how it comes, it must come and be in the hands of the people. Whether they kill us, whether they withdraw their investment, let it be. We will learn to do it on our own.
Yes.
Change is painful. Let me tell you, they need us more than we need them.
Yes.
Because even if they can go, they will never find such a platinum they find here and in Zimbabwe. They are looking for it. Platinum is not looking for them. They are looking for platinum. The 80% of the platinum world, 80% of the world platinum, it's here and in Zimbabwe. If we both of us say, hey, this is ours, you want it, you are going to work with us and through our own terms. And the good thing about international politics today is that they are new emerging markets. The Asian tigers are now emerging. We are no longer reliant only on Europe. But as the Asians emerge, we must make sure that they trade with us through our own terms. Because we don't want a new colonialism in the form of China.
Yeah.
If China wants to come in and the Europeans have got a problem working with us because we are owning our minerals, they are free to go. The Chinese, what do you have for us? If you have money, we have land and minerals. Let's work together. And we must share, but we must be the majority beneficiaries of the proceeds of these mineral resources. We need to take charge of our economy. Today, I said 60% of the food we eat is from outside. A country favored by weather conditions and such a beautiful land, we still eat food from outside. Why? Because our government has failed to protect local industries. They've opened floodgates for imports to come into this country. You know, to produce chicken must not be a difficult thing. But as things are now, we are eating chicken from outside, more in particular from Brazil. And not only chicken from Brazil, it first starts in Brazil, it goes to Europe, they choose the best one, and the remaining is the other countries. It's not a joke. You are young intellectuals, you can go and research it. Now,